All right, so this is 21 lessons that will make you mentally stronger than 98% of people. Most of the self-help advice that's out there, in my opinion, it's useless. It's filled with fluff and it's not enough action. And the reason for that is because there's no conduit for the self-development to happen. And there's three conduits for self-development. So if you are reading any type of self-development, you're trying to improve your life, well, you need a conduit or an area to take those learnings and apply it. And the three areas are health, wealth, and relationships. So health is obviously improving your physical health and your mental health. The second is wealth, and in my definition of wealth, it is entrepreneurship. And third, it is your relationship. So it's a relationship with your family, it's a relationship with others, it's a relationship with a significant other. All right. And so I've read hundreds of self-help books, and only one book has actually provided me with practical advice. And the name of that book is called The Four Agreements. I was given this book a while ago. I never read it. I've always had it. And then finally I decided to go through it and take notes. And I've gotten 21 life-changing lessons that I found inside of the book that I want to share with you that I think can help a lot of people with honestly, they're mental, like making them mentally stronger and improving their mental strength. All right. So lesson number one, the worst way to live is never being able to separate your feelings from the truth. What happens is a lot of people don't understand that what they are feeling is not reality. Right. And so I use something called the STEB cycle, which is a situation happens, right? STEB. A situation happens, then a thought occurs, then there's an emotion, and then there's a behavior. Right? And so what's happening, the feeling is an emotion that you have. So something happened, someone did something, or something happened externally. Then a thought occurred, right? A thought occurred that happened. And then there is an emotion behind it. And then you have a behavior. Okay. So for instance, previously in my relationships, when I used to be dating somebody and somebody would like sigh or not be feeling good about themselves, the thought that comes to my mind, that's a situation, okay, that's something that happened. The thought that would come to my mind would be, oh, they're unhappy in this relationship. So the emotion was sadness. It was feeling stuck. It was feeling that this person doesn't love me. It was not feeling happy, right? And then the behavior was, I would confront them about it and I would like be disrespectful. I would do something. And so see how our emotions impact our behavior. So it's very important that you're able to understand and separate your feelings from your truth. And if you're tired, if you're hungry, if you're not in a state where you can regulate your emotions, as soon as you feel something, what I like to do is give myself space between what I'm feeling and when I'm speaking or when I'm taking some sort of action. Because 99.9% of the time, what you're feeling is never the truth, right? So that's lesson number one. Lesson number two, when we're born, we don't get to choose our name, where we're born, or our beliefs, okay? When we're born, we don't get to choose our name, where we're born, or our beliefs, or what family we're born into. And this leads us to living life according to someone else's rules, not our own. Right? When you were born, no one picked your name except for your parents. You didn't decide where you were born. You didn't decide what family you were born to, right? You didn't decide the generational trauma that family had. And so what ends up happening is that as you get assimilated, as you get domesticated, you ingrain those beliefs that your family have. But there comes a point in your life you have two paths. You can either choose to continue living that same path of generational trauma that your parents lived and their parents lived and they just kept passing on, right? Or you can be the linchpin that makes the change and goes into a different direction. I know I was in this situation. My family, I grew up in a certain situation where I decided, you know what? I'm going to make a change because this is not what I want to push forward in my legacy, in my family. It's not something that I want to pass down to my children. And so I made an active choice to change the beliefs that I had, change the rules that I lived life by, because I didn't want to continue carrying those old, outdated rules that were instilled into me by my parents that served them, but it's not going to serve me in my world and in my life, right? In my reality. So that's lesson number two. Lesson number three, to seek attention and avoid rejection, we pretend to be someone we're not. So to seek attention and to avoid rejection, we pretend to be someone we're not. We live our entire lives with a fake identity because we're afraid to be ourselves. I know for sure I was like this for a very long time, where to please people inside my family, because it was never good enough to please people around me, I put on this fake mask, this fake persona. For a very long time, I was a nerd. I was an academic. It was something that I enjoyed doing. But externally, right, I hid that part about myself at school, and I actually became an F-boy. I became somebody who was portrayed as a player because I wanted to be accepted by others, when in reality I was just this academic nerd who wanted to get really good grades and excel at everything. And so we create these fake masks and identities for ourselves, when truly we need to sit down and we need to ask ourselves, who is it that we want to be? And then let go of all the judgments and avoid the attention, and don't worry about the rejection from others, because at the end of the day, no one's going to love you like you love yourself. And that is the first, self-love is the first thing that you need to create in order to accept who you are, accept all of your flaws, accept all of your weaknesses, accept all of your like imbalances and imperfections. And that's when you can be true to yourself. So that's lesson number 3. Lesson number 4, humans are the only animals that pay for the same mistake thousands of times. We judge ourselves for the mistakes that we make repeatedly. And so what happens is that you make a mistake in your past and you keep replaying it over and over and over again inside of your head, when the truth is the past is the past. You can only heal if you let go of the past, accept what is, and do the work to get to where it is that you want to go. So replaying the past and replaying your mistakes is not going to do you any good. Take the lesson that you need to learn from that mistake and move on. All right. So lesson number 5, it's hard to see the truth when you're blinded by false beliefs. All right. So false beliefs are these stories that we've created from our experiences and things that have been passed down. Right. So one of the false beliefs that I've been passed down from my family is that we are poor people. These are things that we don't do. We don't pay for people to come and clean our homes. We don't pay money to buy back our time. It's not what we do. It's what we are, poor people. But that's a false belief, right? Because at the end of the day, the reality is anybody can pay for that. Anybody can buy back their time. Anybody can do the things that they want to do. And so question all of the beliefs that you have, especially the false ones, the ones that don't serve you, because they may have served you somewhere else. That belief served my parents when they came to the United States to save a lot of money, but it doesn't serve them anymore. And so you have to question every belief that you have, every story that you tell yourself, if you want to grow, if you want to build the life that you want, if you want to make the money, if you want to have the relationship, if you want to have the health, then you have to question all of the false beliefs that you keep telling yourself, the false stories, the stories that are not true, that you keep repeating in your head that hold you back. All right. So lesson number 6, we don't fear death, we fear life. Life is the biggest risk we can take, to wake up, challenge our belief, express who we are, and become our best. Right? That is the biggest risk in life. And so most people are okay with dying through mediocrity, dying, living a life of regret, dying by never reaching their potential, instead of waking up, challenging their beliefs, expressing who they are, and working to become their best self, because it's hard. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it. But it's hard to become your best self, to challenge who you are, to challenge everything that you've done, to create a brand new identity. It's very hard. And that's why not many people can do it. And that's why I am on a mission to help people wake up, to live against the grain, to create the lives that they want. And you do that not by living the script, not by living the preconditioned path that everybody has set for you. And you do that by actually creating the life that you want, by going against the beliefs that you have, by figuring out what identity it is that you need to have, and then going out and doing the work to become that person to build the life that you want. All right. So lesson number 7, most people stay in abusive relationships because of their tolerance level. If someone abuses us more than we abuse ourselves, we'll walk away. But if they abuse us less than we abuse ourselves, we stay. Think about that for a second. How many of us choose to stay in a relationship because the other person is not kind to us, the other person does not love us, the other person does not respect us? But that is actually not a reflection of the other person. That's actually a reflection of you. I saw this video the other day and it really hit me hard, which was the amount like, you can tell how much someone loves themselves based on the partner that they pick. Isn't that crazy? You can tell how much the person loves themselves or respects themselves or trusts themselves based on the partner that they pick. And so if you have a partner who is abusive, if you have people in your life that abuse you more than you abuse yourself, right? Then you will leave. Then you're like, hey, it's not worth it. You know what? This person's bringing me down. But if they abuse you less than you abuse yourself, then you're going to stay in that relationship. But the thing is, you abuse yourself, right? And so that's a pattern that you have to pick up on. What's the internal self-talk? What are you saying to yourself that you don't deserve a better life? But at the end of the day, you just have to change those stories, right? Those false beliefs that you have to be able to then get the life that you want, pick the partner that you want. Because when you start to fix the self-talk that you have, the self-abuse that you give yourself, if you fix that, then you can go back and find the right partner who can actually love you for who you are, but also give you the type of love and the support that you're looking for. Because it's not, you'll get the partner, like, you have to become the person. You have to become the type of partner that you want. And that's what I learned, right? For the longest time, I was in toxic relationships. I was in unhealthy relationships, both in my personal life and in my romantic life. It's because I did not choose to change the identity. And as soon as I changed my identity, I found my wife, who has been the most incredible partner that I could ever ask for. And so a lot of the times it really just comes down to, what is the self-abuse that we are putting ourselves through? And we have to deal with that first, so that way we can go back and deal with the bad relationship they're in. Because once you fix the self-abuse, then you're not gonna, like, as if you're not willing to take any of your own self-abuse, then you're not gonna take any abuse from the other person, right? So think about that. Lesson number 8. Being impeccable means to be without sin. And sin is anything that goes against who you are. When you judge yourself, blame yourself, or beat yourself up, you sin against yourself. Being impeccable is taking ownership of the actions that you take without judgment or blame, right? So I think a lot of the times we don't look at the self-criticism, the words that we use to talk to ourselves, right? Because words are very powerful. Words is how you create change. Words is how you bring things to life, right? Words is how I'm able to communicate with you. But the most important part is the words that actually play inside of your head. What is your internal talk? Is your internal talk always judging yourself, always beating yourself up, always blaming yourself for what's happening? Because I did that for the longest time. And until I changed my self-talk, that was the first time I gave myself permission to grow. That's when I gave myself permission to start doing things and start trying things without ever going to myself like, oh, you suck, or oh, you can't do anything. But in reality, you have to just fix the internal talk, because failure is part of the process. You are going to fail. It's just the difference that when some people fail, they keep living with that failure forever. Some other people that fail, they use that failure as a lesson and they continue forward. All right. So lesson number 9, being impeccable with your words means being truthful. It's about distinguishing fact versus feeling, right? From earlier. Emotions can be deceiving, but being impeccable with your words, meaning telling yourself the truth first. Okay. This happens all the time. If someone says something to you and you feel a certain way, when in reality, the person wasn't saying anything mean, they were just making a statement. They were just saying their truth. And you took it personally because you have a hard time separating your emotions from what is reality. And so being truthful for yourself is taking a step back and saying, okay, emotions are happening. Yes, I'm going to accept and I'm going to acknowledge the emotions that I have, but what is reality? What is happening in real life? What does the data tell me? Right? Because you can use data to regulate your emotions. Get curious. Start asking questions. That's something I'm learning now, which is start asking questions. When I'm in an emotional state or someone says something to me that I take in an emotional way, I start asking questions, right? I start figuring out, hey, is this true? Is that what you're meaning? Or are you meaning it in a different way and I'm taking it a different way? Because many times the other person's not responsible for your feelings. You are. And how you feel is a reflection of how you are taking it in. And how you feel is actually a reflection of what's going on internally. Because if you haven't slept, if you're in a bad state, if you haven't eaten, and all of a sudden someone says something to you, you're not going to be able to take it in a constructive way, and you're not going to be able to remove the emotion from it. So be very careful with attaching emotions to what is actually real. Lesson number 10, the words that others speak about you should not affect you. This is the most powerful one in my opinion. The words that others speak about you should not affect you. Why? Because deep down, you know what you are and who you are. That is why it's so important to start living your own life and stop living to please others. When you live to please others, you are not living your own life. You are not living your truth. You are living somebody else's truth. And many times it's not even their truth. It is a truth that you made up that you think is going to validate you, or it's going to help you get the attention or the approval of the other individual. When in reality, all you need to do is just being true to who you are. And if those people let go, like, it's all good. If those people aren't there because you no longer people please them, it's all good. But the meaningful people in your life will always be there because they don't want you to please them. They want you to be you. They want you to live your truth. And those are the real people in your life. And the people that are there because you people please them, well, you got to let them go anyway. Sooner or later it's going to happen. Or you're going to keep living for other people and you're never going to be able to live your own life. And you're always going to be affected by the words of other people. This is something I had to learn. It's something I had to learn. I used to get very defensive based on what people would say. But in reality, when someone says something about you, it never has anything to do with you. It is a reflection of what they think of you. But if you know who you are, it shouldn't matter, right? So, lesson number 11, suffering, like misery, loves company. And this makes us attract people who will make us suffer as we do ourselves. So if you're already in a state, like I talked about earlier, especially in relationships, if you're suffering in a relationship, it's like trauma bonds, right? You're suffering in a relationship, you find somebody else that's suffering as well, everybody comes together and you just suffer together and you make the other person feel worse and the other person makes you feel worse, right? When in reality, like, you need to just let go of the suffering that you have, because suffering likes company. Nobody likes to suffer alone. But if you can suffer alone and get over it and just say, hey, this was a season in my life, or this happened. Great. This was an external circumstance that I could not control. It happened. I can't do anything about it. But what I can do is move forward and do the work that is required to get to the other side, to become the version of myself, so then I can attract people that are not suffering and attract more healthier people in my life, right? All right, lesson number 12. You are not responsible for the actions, thoughts, or feelings of others. You are only responsible for yourself. All right, real straightforward. It doesn't need to be into that. You are not responsible for the actions, thoughts, or feelings of others. You're only responsible for yourself. Take care of you. Don't worry about anybody else, right? And the people that are in close proximity to you, right? People that are really close to you, let's say your best friends and your relationship, and people that are your coworkers and stuff like that. It comes a point where you are responsible for their feelings in a way, because if you know them really well and you know the things that you should not be saying or the things that you should be saying, then you have to be very careful with how you communicate, right? But other than that, you're not responsible for anybody else. If somebody gets upset or if somebody does something to offend you, it shouldn't offend you, because at the end of the day, they're just living their reality and they're living their truth, and you just got to let go, right? All right, lesson number 13. We only see what we want to see, and we hear what we want to hear. We don't perceive things the way they are. Learning to see the world without your emotions is a powerful skill. It allows you to see the truth. When, again, goes back to remove your emotions from what is reality. When you can remove your emotions from reality, you're going to be able to see the truth. And when you see the truth, then you can actually show up as your best self, right? 14, any problem can be resolved if you have good, clear communication with ourselves first. Okay, not with others, with ourselves. Because what happens is when a thought occurs, when emotion happens, it's internal before we reflect it externally. And so the work needs to be done when everything is internal. And what I like to do is, I don't like to get in my head. I like to take what's going on, put it out on paper, journal about it, get very clear, because when you're in the shit, you can't look at shit, right? You got to put shit on paper to then be able to take a look at it. So any problem can be resolved by communicating with yourself. Get deep with yourself. Figure out what's going on internally, because then you can eliminate the emotions from reality and work on the things that are and what need to be worked on. 15, no matter what happens, do your best. If you do your best, there's no way of judging yourself. Every single day, if you're tired, do your best, the best that you can at that moment. If you feel amazing, do your best. Leave nothing out on the table, because doing your best allows you to never live a life of regret. Show up as your best self for your partner, the best that you can do that day. And if you can't do any better, communicate that. That's the beautiful thing about it, because you know your best. And if you're not living your best, each day you keep chipping the self-confidence away from yourself because you are not being true to who you are. You are living a lie because you could be doing your best, yet you choose to do subpar. And guess what happens subconsciously? You just become the type of person that always does subpar. And so then everything that you do in life is always subpar. And how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if you do subpar in every area of your life, you will get subpar results. Simple as that. But if you can show up and do your best and train yourself to do your best, no matter how you feel, you're always going to get the best outcomes because you're showing up as your best self. You're showing up as your best. 16, taking action is what will make you feel happy. Progress towards your goals brings happiness. Brings happiness. Progress towards your goals brings happiness, right? Real straightforward. Always be working on something. And if you don't have anything to work on you. You are your greatest project. Always. You were always your greatest project. And if you're like, I don't even know where to start with your health. That is the first and easiest thing that you can control. You can't control your external circumstances, but you can control internally. And as soon as you take care of your health is the currency of life. And once you take care of that, you will feel so empowered at the fact that you can create habits and you can say no and you can create boundaries with yourself. And that is a skill set that will help you make money. That was a skill set that will help you in your relationships, all because you started to take care of your health and you took all of these self-development principles and you applied it to a conduit, which was your health. So if you don't know where to start, you are your greatest project. Start with your health. I guarantee you'll make leaps and bounds simply because you started working on you. And the best way to work on you is through your health because that's one thing that only you can control. Nobody else can control that for you. All right? 17, practice means learning from your mistakes. Okay, I'm going to repeat that again. Practice means learning from your mistakes. Look at your results, learn, and practice more. Mistakes increase awareness. Mistakes increase awareness. If you make mistakes and don't learn, you are a fool, right? Everything in life, you keep beating yourself up for the mistakes. Right? We're the only animal that repeats the memory over and over again. We suffer our entire life for the mistakes that we made rather than going, great, what's the lesson? And what I've learned is anytime I make a mistake, I sit down, I open up a journal, I write the documentation of what happened, where was I, what was the outcome, and then I go, great, what is the lesson here? And what that does, it allows me to close that mistake out as a mistake. And now I've reframed it as a lesson and now I can move on with my life, right? So maybe it'll serve you a little bit more as well. The easiest way to transform your life is to start doing your best repeatedly, right? There's no other way to say this. The easiest way to transform your life is to start doing your best repeatedly. Start doing your best in your relationships. Start doing your best in your in creating wealth, right? Building a business or doing whatever it is that you define as wealth. And start doing your best in your health. And whatever your best is, it doesn't have to be the best of the Olympian. It doesn't have to be the best of Warren Buffett. It could be the best of you, right? What is your best? And you know if you're doing your best or not. Because when you show up and you tell yourself, I'm doing my best, and you're not, you're just lying to yourself. And all that does, it diminishes your self-trust in yourself. Because if you keep lying to yourself, all you're telling yourself is that you are somebody who you're not trustworthy. And so the person that you can't lie to is yourself. And so if you know you're not doing your best, start doing your best repeatedly because that's the first way to transform your life. 19, okay, lesson number 19. Negative emotions are like a parasite. They feed on your energy and control your actions. This parasite has 1,000 heads stemming from your fears. To destroy it, you attack it one head at a time, one fear, one belief, one judgment, one past trauma at a time. It's a slow process, but in the end, you emerge victorious. For me, a lot of my emotional work stemmed from neglecting my inner child. I had to go back and do a lot of shadow work, a lot of Carl Jung's individuation process where I was able to have conversations with my shadow self around the emotions that would come up. Why is this coming up? What is the root cause? And it takes a lot of introspection, and it took years. I still do it because I need to know where is this stemming from? Because for me, my belief and my reality is that when I can get to the root cause of something, and if I can understand things at a first principle, this is how I study, this is how I learn. Once I can understand something at the first principle, I've I've nailed it. I've mastered it. And so same thing with my emotions, same thing with my fears, same thing with my judgment, same thing with the traumas that I have. I go back to the root cause. Where did it stem from? What happened in my life? And at the time when I was doing the individuation process and going through the shadow work to integrate a lot of my dark side, things that I've suppressed, it was crazy to have conversations with myself and reliving those memories and writing those things as lessons and taking those things away, and for me to go, okay, I'm at a good point where slowly I just keep chopping away, and it's a parasite that never fed at me. It's not something that took my energy away, but now I've rewritten those traumas and those moments as ways for me to improve my life. Right? Number 20, once you take the time to heal, okay, once you take the time to heal, once you're a blank slate, think about it this way. It's up to you what you believe. You can believe in anything, including yourself. How crazy is that? You can believe in anything, including yourself. So once you heal, once you do the work, once you start improving, once you start dealing with the shift that keeps coming up, then you sit back and you go, cool, what are the new things that I want to believe? And the best way to do that is by changing your identity. Right? As you're changing your identity, this is kind of what I did. I started changing my identity. I was like, hey, this is the type of person that I want to become. And as I was changing my identity, I continued doing a lot of the shadow work. Right? I continued doing and figuring out what I needed to improve on. What are the emotions that come up? And the way that I did shadow work was when an emotion would come up, especially in relationships, when you're in a relationship or someone says something to you or something comes up, there's a little bit of anxiety, there's a little bit of stress, there's a little bit of fear, whatever that comes up, sit with it, observe it. Become a student of yourself. That's kind of crazy, right? Where you sit back and you kind of like look at what's going on from a third-party perspective. So you have this fear or emotion or anxiety, whatever you have, and you just look at it and you question it, right? You actually have a conversation back and forth with yourself. It's kind of surreal how it happens. And you get to question what is actually going on. And eventually you do so much of that you realize, okay, like I've done enough work where I'm a blank slate. Now I can choose to believe whatever it is that I want to believe. I can rewrite all these false stories that I have in my head. I can rewrite all these false beliefs. I can change my character trait. I can become a different version of myself. And the only way to do that is by changing your identity. Okay? And then lesson 21, become a spiritual warrior. Warriors are aware, they have control, and they have discipline over their thoughts and emotions. A victim buries their emotions, but a warrior feels their emotions without reacting. Being a warrior allows us to control our emotions and our behaviors, right? It goes back to the step cycle and what I was talking about. Situation happens, a thought occurs, then an emotion happens, then you have a behavior, right? If you're a warrior, if you're aware, if you are you are centered and you're grounded within yourself, then what you can do is when an emotion comes up, you can observe it like a roller coaster of thoughts and emotions, right? Our thoughts and emotions are like a roller coaster. You have bad sleep, you haven't eaten enough, you're going to get salty. I get salty all the time if I don't sleep or if I don't eat. But what I'm able to do is before I let those emotions make me react, right, I can take a step back and I just go, hey, I'm tired. I can now have a reason for why these emotions are coming up. And I can choose to feel whatever it is that I want to feel. I can choose to get on that roller coaster cart of sadness, that roller coaster cart of happiness, that roller coaster cart of anxiety and fear. I can choose whatever it is that I want to feel. And as soon as you realize that, as soon as you realize that you choose the emotions that you want to feel, even though right now at the beginning, if you haven't done a lot of work, it will feel like they choose you or you just ride them. But when you step back and when you're able to meditate, when you're able to belly breathe, when you're able to ground yourself, when you're able to eat, when you're able to take a walk and just go, you know what? Like, it's not that big of a deal. It's what I'm feeling is not real, right? It is just a response from my past. And if it is a response from your past, that's the cool part. That gives you the opportunity to work through that past in that moment. Because it's very hard to go back to what it is that you're feeling, because in that moment, something happened that you're reliving your past and you can deal with that at that moment. So those are 21 lessons that will make you mentally stronger than 98% of people. I hope this provided you with a ton of value. If it did, awesome. If it didn't, all good. This is from my newsletter that I write every single day. I used to write every single day, but I write it often. If you want to check it out, you can check it out. There will be a new website up coming soon. But if this provided you with value, let me know in the comments. If it didn't, all good. But I hope you have an incredible rest of your day, and I'll catch you guys later. Peace.